Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. We make Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast, and we've got something very exciting to share with you. We have a new service that's being launched, and it's called Spoken Stories.
Spoken Stories is all about recording the voices and memories of your loved ones in outstanding quality, so they can be enjoyed for generations to come. For example, you know the story that Grandma tells that everyone in the family has heard before. Well, Spoken Stories is about getting those stories down and preserving them for your family history. Spoken Stories is about gifting someone the time to capture these personalities and unique voices.
We record your loved ones' tales, whether it's their whole life story so far or something more specific like a life-changing event. It is a gorgeous experience, and what you're left with is a beautiful monologue that really captures the essence of that person.
Think of it like an audio portrait, and take a listen to a snippet of this one from Diane's spoken story, recorded in her beautiful garden.
I was born in 1951 at Newmarket, and unfortunately I didn't see Mum for a year. I was looked after by a lovely nurse called Diane, my name, because my mum had TB when I was born. And so my mother never worked because with her problem with her, lungs, she had to go and have it sort of pumped up every so often. She used to do a lot of dressmaking, so she always made our clothes years ago. But yeah, she was a lovely mum, yeah, and Dad as well, yeah. That's very nice childhood I had, yeah, very nice. Yeah. I got married February the 16th, 1974. The weather was gorgeous. I ended up having to put on a big sort of T-shirt under my wedding dress I didn't need. I had a lovely one of those transparent umbrellas in case it rained, and it was just a beautiful day. I think I'm always sort of quite cheerful. I mean, if I go down the Luke and deliver some eggs to somebody, I'll meet somebody and chat, and then Paul say, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been chatting to people." That's just my way. That's just how I am. We've always lived here. We had this built in 1974. They put the footings down in February and we moved in the August. Years ago, I used to go around the village on a bike, and when I had Ian, he'd sit on the back. We live in a lovely area. We've got lovely neighbours. They help us all out, which you all do with neighbours, and that's very, very nice. And as I said to Paul, I'm hoping we can keep this place on until, well, I don't want to move from here until I go out in a brown box. I hope that's not too soon.
If you'd like more information about Spoken Stories and to take advantage of our special introductory offer, you can head to www.soundyard.org/spoken stories.
And keep listening after this episode with Chris, and you'll hear another example of a spoken story. It's a view of the world from a 6-year-old.
Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast with Matthew Gudgeon.
Well, it's a little unusual this week. We start in a very busy place, not on the farm, but only a mile or so away. We're in a Tesco car park, Chris.
Yes, well, I know how to treat a boy well.
Yeah. Are you going to get me a beef burger in there in a minute?
Well, I can buy the wrapper and perhaps I can afford that. Anyway, this is very exciting for me because it's almost unique, really, what we're now going to see, in that at High Ash Farm, just at the entrance of the farm, there are 2 farm cottages. And way back when I was a boy in the 1950s and 60s, there was no room anywhere around those cottages for these particular birds which we're now visiting to nest. Every eave all the way round, and the apexes were jam-packed with house martin nests. In previous podcasts, we've looked at sand martins just a mile or so away from where we're standing. And we've also looked at the swallows at Hyash Farm. We've got a lovely lot there. And house martins make up the trio. Now, everybody thinks swifts should be similar family members, but they're not. Swifts are more closely related to hummingbirds, which surprises everybody, although they got the same flight silhouette, that sickle-shaped wing.
And sadly, they've been a rare sight this summer, haven't they?
Almost completely absent. Do you know what? I've only seen 3 swifts, and sometimes we have up to 1,000 or more at the farm feeding community. That's the swifts. They're the largest ones. Now, these birds are quite tiny, and when we looked at the sand martins, I imagined to give you a kilo bag of sugar in one hand, and sand martins in the other hand. To balance it out, there would be 75 sand martins. Swallows, you'd have 36, and house martins are right betwixt the two at about 50 house martins per kilo. It's impossible to imagine, and they're really distinctive. And I suppose of all the 3 main species, that house martins are perhaps spend more time with people. They don't seem as timid as swallows, and certainly sand martins nest well away from people in sand quarries. But we're standing in one of the apexes just underneath, and above our head. It's unusual because they're undercover. There's 3 sand martin nests. Sorry, house martin nests. Okay.
Oh, I can hear some. Are they chicks up there?
Yes, they're chicks. And what happens is, so there's 3 nests just here, and round the store there's a total of 12 nests. And it's quite remarkable. They've built up each year over the last 4 or 5 years, and each year the numbers have increased. But in 2020, house martins were declared a red list species, which shows it's a species in terminal decline almost.
There's a house martin that wants to get home.
Okay, if we just move a little bit to one side. I brought the binoculars with you, but this is a bit ridiculous because they're only 8 feet from us. And I think if we stand over here, they will come in. There we go. There we go. Right above our head, on cue, and gone. That's how I like to feed my children. That was just under 1 second visit.
So often house martins' nests are right on the outside, aren't they?
Yes, it's so unusual. And the difference between a swallow's nest and a house martin's nest is quite staggering. Swallow nests are basically just a half cup. And round the store, I've helped fund 20 swallow nests. There's one, and there's one right above your head. Artificial ones, but if we walk down here a little bit, there are also some real swallow nests made of mud. Both species, swallows and house martins, make their nest from mud pellets, and that nest there is occupied with 3 young chicks in it, and I've been watching them, and you can see there's a fair amount of droppings on the floor, and the supermarket has been really obliging, and there's one nest right at the entrance where everybody goes in and out. That's also got 3 youngsters in, second broods, so they've done really well.
Well, this Tesco south of Norwich has been here for 20 years plus now, hasn't
yes,
it?
it has.
But whoever designed it, really, this is an ideal place, isn't
This
it?
is accidental success, we'll put it like that, because it wasn't designed for birds to come and nest in, but the swallows not suffering so badly in the south and the east of the country. House martins certainly are, and that's a big mystery that the BTO is trying to solve, that really they're pretty well absent from a lot of the south and the east. This huge decline has happened. Now, it's interesting to speculate that the west of the country is wetter, so there's more insects. The west of the UK is also more pastoral, so there's more cattle about, which means the insects, and both species, swallows and... Let's just go back here.
Lots of activity with the house martins.
Yes, you see, they'll feed en masse. They kind of stick together and fly out, and 2 swallows are doing a courtship display outside the store. They're flying around almost bat-like in between the cars.
In between the cars, inches above the cars, and meanwhile people loading their shopping into the back of cars.
Completely oblivious to this wonderful, wonderful spectacle. And these little birds in the nests above our head, we're back underneath the house martin's nest now. They'll be doing this incredible flight back to South Africa. And I visited their wintering quarters a few years back. I went to Senegal, and above the mangrove swamps there, I saw well over 1,000 house martins just communally feeding. They don't have much to do with people down there because they're big open spaces, very few houses as well, and they're just doing really well. So each nest comprises of mud. Another one just came in, and counting the seconds and gone. That's 3 seconds per visit. Each nest, because it's a complete flask-shaped nest with a little slit at the top, is made from about between 2,000 and 2,500 mud pellets.
There was another adult in
Yes,
there.
they were, because there's young in there, and they'll go in. And they'll also, the young from the first brood, these are all second brood house martins, so it's the second time mum and dad have reared the young, and the young, when they leave the store, they'll learn where it is, but they'll gather insects off the River Yare, which is very close to us, and they'll come back and feed the offspring in the nest as well as mum and dad. So you kind of increase the success rate of the brood, the young brood. So really, really beautiful little birds, very distinctive, very small, lacking that huge long forked streamer tail that the swallow has, but the distinctive feature is if we watch them next time they'll come in, there's a very distinctive white rump which the swallow lacks, and also house martins don't have that sort of blood red chin underneath the beak as well. So basically they are sort of metallic blue on their back. There we are. Now just watch, that one's just gone into nest number 2, and if it leaves we should see that distinctive white rump. Once the nest is built of those mud pellets, it's lined with feathers and grass, and you can see all the way round, hanging round them is bits of feathers which they sometimes pick off the ground, or like the sand martins that we saw earlier, they will actually gather them in the air. There it goes, and there's your white rump.
Yeah.
Very distinct.
Flash of white
Yes.
as he disappears off.
Yes, and just look there. There's a swallow on one of my nest cups.
Oh,
look.
yes, that makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Oh,
Standing
yes, that's what
proudly.
you can do. So, you know, I've worked in, I talked to the management, and they've agreed, believe it or not to clean all this bird poo and the outside of the store until well into September that these birds have gone. Talk about a success story and a huge smile. I think we can do better than that beef burger, you know.
Now it's just a joy to come here. You do your weekly shop and see the birds.
Yes.
And a few years ago, it was touch and go whether these birds would be allowed to carry on here.
Yes.
Not through any malevolence, but
No.
through just generally people didn't understand.
No, that's right. And so the store netted off the whole front of this building all the way along and excluded the birds being able to come in, just so that they could get the store painted at the right time of year, which is June, July and August. And of course that clashed with the nesting swallows, and it doesn't work. So we managed to get the netting. There's one right coming above our head, nest number 1. There's actually 4 nests there, and feeding the young. And also, when the parents leave, they will take a little poo pellet out and drop that a little bit away so the detritus doesn't build up in the nest too much, and they can use those nests again next year. And I've asked management to actually leave the mud cut nests for another year so they can just paint round them, or I'd go up with a paintbrush and show them how to do it, but I'm not allowed in case I fall down. And so, yeah, I'm just smiling from ear to ear. That's the only way I can put it. It's a huge success story, and the numbers are building up, which defies what's happening to the bird as a species. 50% decline in total, and 20% since 1995. So there we are. Congratulations, Tesco, and a big pat on the back.
Well, it's been great fun coming to see these birds, and of course they'll be gone in a few weeks' time, but it's part of the season. And now I've got my trolley, I'll go and do my weekly shop.
Yeah, I've been off my trolley for years, Matthew. prickly.
We're wading out into a field here, back on the farm after our little brush with 21st century modernity at the supermarket. And actually the sun's gone in, we've got a bit of blue sky, but it's one of those strange days that we're getting this summer.
Very strange. Look above the wood there where one of the young buzzards has just taken to the wing, Matthew.
Oh, that's a buzzard, is
That's
it?
a young
Wow.
buzzard. The ones we heard screeching and calling. Oh,
Two.
there's a parent underneath, double the size. So it's keeping an eye on your offspring. When they take to the wind like that, they can end up anywhere. So mum and dad have to bring you back to the nesting territory. Anyway, I brought you to something very strange. Let's hope no farmers are listening to this podcast, because this is a field of overwinter wild bird seed mix. There's lots of cereals down here. Here's some. They're all in here. You could actually get the combine in them. That's fodder radish. Lots and lots of plants here. And one of the main ones, which I grow here, is for butterflies, and it's I hope nobody's listening, it's called creeping thistle, and it's a real agricultural nightmare. Way back in the 1930s and 40s there was no chemical control of these plants, and they're not very good at seeding themselves, but they produce millions of seeds which float off in the wind. But what they are good at is, once one gets established, they form a root structure just under the soil, and they join hands, and you get very, very large clumps of this particular thistle species, creeping thistle.
And this is it here.
This is it, and you can see it's armed with spikes on the stalk, on the leaves, and even on the flower heads. Now, the flower heads are interesting. We'll choose a nice large one.
Up goes a pheasant.
That'll be Rat in there. I'm surprised he's gone through this thistle thicket.
Oh, there's another.
We can tell exactly where he is. Or he's disturbed a fox, and the fox is running through there, and that's doing a bit of game frightening for us. But here I've got hold of a thistle head, and it's really beautiful. And this little structure underneath is got a special name. It's called a capitulum. So
new on me, that one.
there we are.
Capitulum.
And out of the capitulum comes what looks like one flower, and actually there's perhaps 100 to 150 little mauve flowers there, each one with pollen, each one with nectar, and it's a real magnet for bees. There's a buff-tailed bumblebee just over there, only about 10 paces from us, and close by a honeybee. So you can see it's a real favourite, and they're gathering this nectar and pollen, and also at the same time fertilising the thistle heads. Now, there's just a little bit of breeze gone up, and that's what I wanted to show you. You can just see over the top of the crop. There they go.
Yes, so these are the fluffy bits on
Yes,
the top that
they've
presumably
got
the seeds get distributed by.
That's right. They've got a special name as well. They're called papas. It brings back memories from a 1960s pop group. Was it the Mamas and the Papas?
Yes.
But that's spelt rather differently.
So that it's a bit like dandelion.
Yes, right, good, because creeping thistle is technically called a pioneering species. Dandelions are pioneering species. Willow trees are. There's rosebay willow herb, or fireweed, which is also a pioneering species. So several of them, those that spread their seeds by the wind. Ragwort is another one. So whichever way the wind blows, the seeds have to go that way. But what I'm going to take you and show you is one of the magical sights of nature, just about another 10 feet into this thistle patch. I don't know how thick your trousers are.
Well, you should have told me I would have put my buskins on.
Right, I wear them all the time. Right, I've just got thick skin. Right, I'll squash a little bit down for you so you can
I'll follow you.
Follow me.
Yes, there's some really good stuff in here. There's all these thistles,
Yes,
which is ideal, isn't it, for the butterflies?
Yeah, there goes, what have we got? A small tortoiseshell. Absolutely beautiful. That's my first one this year. Just flitted
And the
off.
sun's gone in the last half hour, so we'd presumably see more.
Yes,
sun
so
was
the
out.
butterflies will come out of the woodland, and there goes a huge drift of thistledown up into the air. Look, there's a little, what we call a Roger in the countryside, which is a miniature whirlwind, and it swept the thistledown up. And you can see if we look across the top of the
More
crop
coming there, taking
there
off.
we are, another little Roger in front of us. It's still where we're standing, and some sort of quite fierce little breeze right in front. And they're all going in a circle, and they're heading off to Yarmouth. But they can go further than that, across the North Sea and land in Holland. They can go up, several thousand feet.
Some Dutchman's cereal field is going to curse you.
Cursing High Ash Farm. But have a look at this, because as I said in a previous podcast, most of the attention that humans give flowers is actually when they're in flower, and the rest of the year is almost equally as interesting. So we had some warm sun an hour or so ago, and this causes the little capitulum to explode into these little, there's thousands of them under my hand, these little seed heads.
It's really furry, that, isn't it?
Yes, and so I can now grab one off the top of the plant very delicately and pull it out, and I managed to do two. And there we are, separated it. Now, this is basically a hot air balloon. The sun goes into the little pappus, this little group of hairs here, and warms it up, and therefore the wind is trapped inside this little furry seed head, and the air is lighter there, so up goes the thistledown and off into the wind. And the plant seems to know to separate them. You can see it's exploding at about 50 seeds at a time, just from one little thistle head. It's almost just magical.
There must be thousands in there.
Now, here's one that's ready to explode perhaps tomorrow. Look, it's tightly held, and it looks like an artist's paintbrush, a very, very fine one. So just amazing.
Is that dew on there?
No, it's rain from yesterday. We had a quick shower, and so you can actually see the little droplets of water from last night.
The individual droplets are all held in suspended animation.
Yes, and you can see over there, it looks like it's diamonds at the top of that one. But when you get heavy rain, of course, those pappus get waterlogged. They're no further use for going airborne, so they drop down onto the soil. But generally, what they like to do, like all parents, they like the children to get well away from home and start off their own territory, and that's what thistles specialise in. Now, this plant's it's an individual plant. Just careful, because I've got spikes all the way up the stalk as well. There's probably 10 to 12,000 pappus on that plant alone, which will come out over the next few days once you get the warm sunshine, and then this field kind of explodes. It is just an amazing sight to see them all coming off together, most of them singly, but some in little groups about the size of your fist, and off they go, perhaps heading eastwards, which they're doing today. We've got a westerly breeze, and perhaps tomorrow they'll go due westwards. So there's what we call a pioneering species, any bare ground where they land on, and some of the tracks on the farm are white and peppered already, with hundreds and thousands of the seeds that have already left this field. But they're very, very poor indeed, luckily for us, at germinating and establishing colonies like this. So this is really for the butterfly species, and that's one thing. Together with the swifts, we've got a dearth of this year, I suppose you'd call it. There's a real lack of butterflies here. There's just a few species at the moment. If we get some more warm weather, hopefully they'll all be back.
Enjoying the pappus. Papas don't preach.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you can make all sorts of terrible jokes up. And there you are, look, right beside you. Little buff-tailed bumblebee, and it's moving faster than you through the thistles.
Which isn't difficult. Just enjoying those flowers. Which way out do you think?
I think the way you came in's the best. They made a little track.
Oh, and there's Rat.
Here he is, good boy.
The ducks at High Ash Farm going in to roost for an evening. Hey everyone, it's Matthew here, and if you've been enjoying our countryside podcasts, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yes, Matthew. What we're going to do is to ask for a small donation to help run the podcast, and any surplus goes for conservation at High Ash Farm here. And so it's really important. We both love to keep the podcast going, and that duck agrees with me, I think.
Well, it's straightforward to donate. You can make a one-off donation or set up a small monthly contribution, and the address is highashfarm.com/podcast.
We're hugely grateful for any support. It means we can keep sharing the stories of the countryside, which I love doing each week, but it's that small amount of costs we need to cover. So thank you very much in advance.
Rat is with us on our nature walk today. I think he's enjoying himself. He'd like some sun. He likes sunbathing, doesn't he?
He does. The hotter, the better with this dog. Anyway, he's following us into this field.
Hello, Rat.
Here he is. Top boy. Oh, got to pick him up.
Right.
Goodness me.
He went deep into the thicket where we were just now, didn't he?
Yes, he just disappears, but he's very good. He's getting mature now. I think he's probably about 6-7 years old, and he's got something unusual in a dog. He's got something called fieldcraft, and he can work out where a rabbit's going to run now, and so instead of running where behind the rabbit, he will cut it off. He's getting quite sharp, but he's still not quite quick enough to catch them. So he's very good, and he's soft-mouthed as well, which is unusual for a terrier. He picked one of my bantam chicks up during the week and brought it across to me, opened his mouth and dropped it out, and I put it back in the run, and it was completely unfazed, unhurt. Matthew, early this spring I took you to one of the areas of woodland at High Ash Farm, and we looked at some of the poisonous plants there. One was called hemlock, and I said life, if you're studying nature in the UK, can be a bit confusing, because I turned you round and there were two giant trees behind us. If you remember, they were also called hemlock. Right, I'm going to do the same thing again, but with a different species, because on the farm we've got a wet area where there's a lake and it's fed by streams, and during the winter months we have waders, things like snipe come there, greenshank, and there's one bird quite closely related which got bright red legs and an orange beak, and it's called redshank. Now, in front of us, no birds about. This plant here is called redshank.
Oh, same name.
His same name. And it's got quite beautiful little pink flowers on the top of the stalk here. And there's another one there. It's quite common on these fields. It quite likes damp soil. And it's thriving. But
Why
it does
red shank though?
Yeah.
They're slightly pinkish.
Yes, they are. And lower down on the root, right at the bottom, if you look down on this one, you can see it's bright red.
Oh yes, there we
you
are.
are. Look, it was almost blood red right at the bottom.
And the shanks are legs,
The
aren't they?
shank is a leg, yes. Yes. One of the nicknames for the boys at school, I think we called him Shanks, because he had really, really long legs. He was 6'2" at 16 years old. So we called him Shanks, just because it's sort of a nickname for legs, I suppose. Anyway, that's redshank. Nothing to do at all with the bird. It's just because it's got red leg, if you like, which is its stalk. And we don't even need to move, because down in here is another beautiful, beautiful plant. Mauve flowers on at the moment. What I'll do is just pinch one of the leaves off, get you to give that a good crush, and quite violently go and give it almost a roll, and then have a sniff.
Well, I can feel it's so oily.
Yes.
And oh wow, yeah. Minty.
Well done.
Yeah.
Field mint.
Toothpaste.
We've looked at water mint in the past, Mentha aquatica, when we visited High Ash's very own bog. And this is a field version of it, really closely related and very aromatic. But it produces flowers at this time of the year all the way up the stalk. And you can see they're in complete circles just above each pair of leaves. There's a lovely little whorl, it's called, WHORL,
It's like a
of
crown.
flowers. Yes, it's like a crown. And this one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whorls of flowers all the way round the stalk. It can get up to about a foot tall. Again, it's not seen so much today because agricultural chemicals will easily kill it, because it is quite competitive, and again it's one of those plants or wildflowers that forms a rootstock. And then if we just stand up again, there's a really beautiful flower all over the field. If we just move in a bit, you'd think this is a field of orchids.
Yes.
Really beautiful, and the same colour as our early purple orchid. And it's called field woundwort, and the Greeks knew about it, and they used it for healing wounds, hence the name, the common name, woundwort. And it's a sort of pinkish, purplish colour, flowers on a tall spike. Bees absolutely love it. It's got quite a large lip lower down. Actually, we can have a close look at one, and it's one of those plants, rather like the sandfoin and the foxgloves we looked at. Here it is. There's little honey guides on the bottom lip of the flower. The flowers are tiny, each individual flower, about the size of a match head, I suppose, to give you an idea. Really beautiful. And they open up, they have a hood over the top of the flower to sort of protect it, the nectary, from the rain. And those tiny little guides on the bottom petal, little stripes, which are quite hard for us to see, but for things like bumblebees, honeybees, it guides them in. They see it in a different colour completely. And so field woundwort, and the Greeks used it, and they sort of made a paste from the leaves and the stalk and the flowers, and you'd put it onto wounds. And recently we've discovered that Rat has got very jealous. He's sitting on the outside, doesn't want to come in amongst these thistles. What do you think? Should we put him back in the car? That is the most
poor old
squeaky.
Rat.
I think he needs some WD-40. other lubricants are available.
So the woundwort was spread on any wounds?
Yes,
And everything
and-
was okay?
And more or less, it's quite surprising because it's got quite a powerful antiseptic quality to it. And it's only just been discovered.
So there was truth behind it.
It was one of those things that's quite sort of true to history. So there it is all through here. It's really beautiful. It does look like a field of tall orchids. And if we walked out further, there's an even more interesting plant. But I go on for hours once I get in a wildflower field.
Rat is going to have a right tizzy if
He
you
would
go
have
further
if
into
I
the
go
field.
any further. And it's a little purple flower, very similar, low down, and it comes from the French, and it's called fumitory. And I grow it here because those tall hedges at the bottom are ideal for turtle doves. I've got the plant, I've got the seed, I've got the habitat, but sadly, no turtle doves this year.
You want a neon sign, turtle doves welcome.
Oh yes, exactly that, yes. Right, let's go and rescue this whinging dog. All he wants to do is get back in the car. He doesn't like thistles.
Don't blame him. Rat has been rescued, and we're sitting in the farm truck here. And is he happy? Yes, I think so.
I think
yeah.
so, he is up. He's on my lap.
He wanted to go
Otherwise-
down where my feet are. didn't
Yes,
he?
for some reason. Yes, I won't say it.
No, I quite agree. Sharon, listening in Downpatrick, County Down, has sent us a lovely card, beautiful bee there on a flower, and she tells us all about the local wildlife in Ireland, and she wishes us well, and the boss as well, Rat.
There
Rat's
we are.
ears are burning.
Got his own card.
And there's a little plastic bag with something that looks like red cabbage in it here. And on it, it says Rathlin Island Dulse. I'm sending you some dulse that I got on Rathlin Island when I was there at the end of May. I went to see the puffins and did see a few. And the fulmars.
Yes, it's in Southern Ireland, but it is quite close to the border. It's a really beautiful area by the look of it. I studied it on the Atlas, and she's very, very lucky to live there. So well done, Sharon, and thank you for the dulse. I've now got to work out how to cook it to make it palatable.
So this is seaweed, isn't it?
It's basically dried seaweed, and I had a chew, and I think I prefer my belt that I have. It's pretty much leather-like.
All through the plastic, it feels quite tough, doesn't it?
It is, but it's one of those species of seaweed that's very broad and grows in quite shallow water, high-quality water as well, and it's doing really well, and it's picked and dried, and is quite edible. So I will try and soak it and cook it as recommended in the recipe that you've sent. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Of course, we are spoilt in Norfolk on the east side of England in that at about this time of the year and slightly earlier, you can buy something called samphire.
Glasswort is its proper name. Yes.
Is it officially a seaweed samphire or samphire?
Well, it's called samphire. Technically, it's one of those intermediate plants that grows. It doesn't mind having its feet in seawater once a day. It kind of grows on the mud flats and all around the North Norfolk coast, and people pick it and pull it up by the root. And you need to get it early in the season. Much later and it goes tough. And the reason it's called glasswort, that's its proper name, is that the Romans used to boil it down, and it would help to make Roman glass, which is slightly blue tinge to it. So
it really is delicious, though. Just boiled up.
Absolutely boiled up with a knob of butter on.
Nice bit of brown bread or something.
And that does the trick. And I have it most weeks if I manage to get to Norwich Provision Market, right in the centre of Norwich.
Even though it costs a king's ransom, but it's only for a short season.
Yes, yeah.
Someone's got to go out and wade into the mud and pick it.
You're telling me, and then it's washed properly and brought in. It's no good having the old stuff. It's a bit like eating shoe strings.
Yeah. Marsh samphire from North Norfolk, from Morstan or Blakeney.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. So proper name is glasswort.
I call it samphire.
Oh, suit yourself. We do things proper in Norfolk.
I know you do.
Yes.
Jean Burton has sent an email. On Wednesday, I was in the garden, heard an unusual bird call. It was then two calls, two beautiful kestrels flying about over the neighbourhood. The calling was very loud, interspersed with some clicking sounds. One of the birds kept landing on a neighbour's aerial. I tried to capture the video, but with limited view, and them being so fast, it wasn't easy. I've never seen this behaviour before. Does Chris know what they were up to? Was it courtship? And I've attached a video with the sounds. Quite magical. So you've had a little look.
I've had a look, and I've had a listen as well. And what you captured was almost unique, really. It's one of the parents with one of this year's offspring, and it was actually taking the food to the youngster. So it was kind of parental care, and the youngster was calling out. The youngster's call was slightly different. Again, it's rather like those buzzards. It's quite a surprising sound. It's very high-pitched and sort of scritchy, scratchy noise. And the youngster was begging still to be fed, but the adult looked as though it was actually trying to get it to come off its perches and fly out and catch food for real. So it was just like youngsters do. If you carry on feeding them, they'll carry on asking for food. Kick them out.
That's the way. Tim Dickinson has been in Norfolk this week, staying near Cromer. What a wonderful place to have a holiday. I heard that Chris is collecting yellow rattle seed. Wondered if I could purchase directly on a visit, come and see you, rather than it being posted. And I think he has been here.
He has been. I was busy in the tractor, and I noticed somebody in the rear camera on the tractor standing about 25, 30 yards from me, waving furiously. And I got out of the cab, and I thought, oh dear, what have I done wrong? And he said, are you Chris? And is that Rat? And yes to both. And he said, we've had a magical walk round High Ash Farm. It is fabulous. We've listened for years to the podcast or previously on the radio programme that I did, and he said, is it possible to have some yellow rattle? So I said, there'll be a pack and a card ready for you back at the farm when I get back to the farm at lunchtime. And I did notice a car come up the yard and collect it. So it's lovely to meet you, and 3 very hot dogs as well, which they'd brought with them.
I think it's Tim's first visit to Norfolk, because he says in the email, we have loved the coast and the countryside so far, from Wells to Sea Palling. So it sounds like he's exploring. Isn't it wonderful to be there for the first time looking?
And Norfolk's so different. The North Norfolk coastline is magical, as the word described there, and exactly that. It varies so much. You've got some cliffs, you've got the huge sandy beaches at Holcombe, which take your breath away, really, and there's so many local foods up there and restaurants where you can eat a whole variety of different locally caught produce.
Bill has sent another mystery sound for you, Chris. A terrible recording, I'm afraid, says Bill. A descending, slightly depressed, almost gurgling, gulpy call. That sounds like when I need my dinner. That doesn't it? 3 or 4 descending notes each time. For once, the amazing bird app on my telephone couldn't identify it for whatever reason. It was rather windy, and the recordings from the bottom of my garden over a field of pasture with 2 lakes, a big area of mixed woodland nearby, and then a big rocky hill. Any clues?
Yeah, I listened really carefully, Matthew, but I couldn't do a firm identification. To start with, it sounded like a green woodpecker, the sort of yaffle and the young green woodpecker, but I was so uncertain. So what I'd like to do is kind of say that sometimes questions get the better of me. If it had been a good clear recording without all the wind there, I think I'd have stood a 90% chance of getting it, but this time Skinner's not a winner.
Emails to chris@countrysidepodcast.co.uk. We can't necessarily mention everyone, but all the emails are read, and we'll try and do as many of the questions and answers as we can on future episodes. So from a rather grey little piece of countryside just outside Norwich, the skies have gone really sort of quite slate on us. It might be rain later.
Well, £1 a drop at this time of the year.
Yeah, you see, he's grinning, and he's got his hay in, so he doesn't mind now.
No, don't mind. No, so a good drink for the crops would be very welcome, and it will finish the wheat crop off, which is yet to harvest in this part of East Anglia. Most of the winter barley, the spring barley's combined, the rape's all combined, and my barn is full of hay. Really, really good quality this year with no rain on it. So far this year, you've got a very happy farmer.
Wow. And what about Rat? Are you happy?
Yeah, I think he is.
Sticking his tongue out.
Yes. I was taught to do that at school as well, but I got told off for it.
Join us again soon for another Countryside podcast.
Yep. Bye.
This is a Soundyard production. Music is by Tom Harris.
Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. Our new service, Spoken Stories, is an incredible experience where we record the stories and voice of your loved one, which you can then hold on to forever.
It makes for an incredible gift, and anyone can make one. Take a listen to this. It beautifully captures the thoughts and feelings of life from a 6-year-old's perspective.
I'm 6 years old and I love running around. I can run very, very fast, but I'm even faster on my bike. That's why I love biking. It makes me feel energetic. And also I bike loads of places. I like doing sports like dodgeball. The people that are in charge in the world Well, I think that there should be no one in charge at all. So everyone's in charge. So there's no person that's in charge. So everyone is it's a bit more free. That's what I think. Well, what I try to change at the moment is global warming. It's when us humans litter, destroy the planet and all its nature. That's global warming. It makes me feel sad. And also, if us humans keep doing that, and that it could destroy the whole planet Earth, and then all of the human beings will be destroyed. I try to stop global warming. And also, in my coat pocket, I have a bit of Kit Kat litter I found on the floor once. I love the planet more than anything. Grown-ups should be stopping global warming, because grown-ups are more powerful than kids. But if kids can be more powerful than grown-ups, kids and grown-ups can work together and do it. Kids should be able to do the same things as grown-ups. They should have more rights. Well, I love myself because that I believe in a lot of things. That's what I love about myself. I like being a kid, but because when I'm a grown up, I'm gonna have my own kids because that's what I want. And also, I'm a bit worried to have kids, and I'm still gonna be a kid for a long time. So I'm glad that's actually gonna happen. I'm glad I'm gonna stay a kid for a long time. I'm gonna have kids because I want to know what it feels like to be a parent. I'm gonna be a good parent.
Isn't that just gorgeous? If you'd like to find out more about recording a spoken story of your own, or you'd like to buy this as a present for someone, take a look at our website, www.soundyard.org/spoken stories, and take advantage of our introductory offer. Alternatively, you can get in touch via email, hello@soundyard.org.
And if the internet isn't an option, you can leave a message with your details on our landline number. It's 01603 273 899, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.